This video will describe disassembly and reassembly of the Ruger GP100 revolver. For basic operation, see Basic Firearms Tutorial number 2 on this channel. These instructions are not translatable to most other revolvers, but should apply to the Ruger SP101 and Super Red Hawk models. These instructions will not apply to the original Red Hawk. The first step in disassembling any firearm is to ensure all ammunition has been removed. Again, see my Basic Firearms tutorial video for instructions. The GP100 can be largely disassembled without tools. Current models ship with the Hogue monogrip, so an actual screwdriver might be needed, but the original wood insert factory grip has a screw which can be removed with a cartridge rim or small coin. This is the first step. After removing the panels, push the aluminum grip locator out from either side. Note a small slot for a pin under the left panel. Save it, we'll be using it in just a moment. With the locator removed, the grip module slides off the frame downward. Cock the hammer. Note how the mainspring compresses and its guide rod protrudes. Insert the pin to capture the mainspring and release the hammer in a controlled manner. The mainspring assembly can then be removed. Point the weapon muzzle down and pull the trigger so that the hammer is all the way forward. Hold the trigger back. Remove the hammer pin. Remove the hammer. If you have a large aftermarket rear sight instead of the factory original, you may have to remove that first before removing the hammer by drifting out or punching out the small pin here on top of the frame. The trigger can then be released. The end of the mainspring guide rod can be used as a lever to release the trigger group from the frame. Press forward on the trigger group catch, and the trigger group can then be removed from the bottom of the frame. Take care to not lose the transfer bar. The weapon won't fire without it. If it comes loose, it is easily reinstalled as shown. With the trigger group removed, the cylinder can be opened and the crane removed from the front of the frame. This concludes basic disassembly of the GP100. With the cylinder removed from the frame, cleaning the chambers is considerably easier. However, the cylinder assembly can be disassembled even further. Use a long, thin tool to depress the plunger inside the hole in the top of the crane. If you placed it right, the pin restraining the mainspring might work. Typically, I use a small screwdriver instead. While holding the plunger, push the cross pin out. You'll probably need another tool for this. The ejector rod and the forward cylinder latch can then be removed from the crane. The crane can then be removed from the cylinder. When disassembling the cylinder group, take care to not lose the very small plunger and spring inside the front of the crane. These are necessary for function of the forward cylinder latch. This video presumes you know how and where to clean a revolver. Now let's examine reassembly. If you continued the disassembly of the cylinder group, first insert the crane into the cylinder. I usually have a couple drops of CLP for lubricant on the cylinder base pin here. Insert the ejector rod with the short slot, which goes all the way to one end, on top. Insert the forward cylinder latch with the sharp notch on top, pointing toward the rear. Make sure the plunger and spring are inside before you do this. Insert the cross pin. You will have to depress the plunger again to get it to move. Jiggle the forward cylinder latch to get it to line up. Check function of the ejector rod and the forward cylinder latch. Pressing on the rear cylinder pin should cause the forward latch to retract. Insert the reassembled cylinder group into the frame and close the cylinder. Insert the trigger group from below, front first. Take care so the transfer bar does not bind during insertion. Snap the rear of the trigger guard into place. Pull the trigger and hold it to the rear. Insert the hammer and the hammer pin. Insert the mainspring group with the slope of the top end of the guide rod as shown. The notch in the base of the mainspring group should be forward. Cock the hammer to release the restraining pin, then gently release the hammer. Insert the grip frame into the grip module. If your GP100 has the Hogue monogrip, you may have to refer to Hogue's instructions. Insert the locator. Store the mainspring pin in its slot. Insert the wood panels and replace the screw. After reassembly, check function in both single and double action modes. This should conclude the disassembly and reassembly of the Ruger GP100 revolver. For more detailed disassembly, instructions can be found, among other sources, in the Gun Digest book of Firearms Assembly Disassembly Part 2, Revolvers. An exploded parts diagram can be found in the user's manual, which can be downloaded free from the manufacturer's website, Ruger.com, under the Customer Service tab.